Hello and welcome to Faith Matters. This is the programme where we take a spiritual perspective on Merseyside life. And our guests in the studio today are Annie, Eric and Jenny from the charity In Another Place. Annie, the story of In Another Place is a fascinating one. I personally know a little bit about it. It does fascinate me. Tell our viewers about how did you get started and what is it you do?
Well, we started life almost exactly 10 years ago, actually. I had moved to Crosby with my family, and the Iron Men were just moving to Crosby as well and being installed on our beach. And I went down to have a look in the June of that year and saw the Iron Men on the beach, thought they were really wonderful and inspiring. And at that time, I'd just been involved for a long time in Everton with a charity where we used to have a nativity walk in the Christmas time with children. And I thought maybe we could do some sort of a nativity walk, bring Christmas alive for people on Crosby Beach, dress up some of the statues, have some animals. Maybe Crosby's a bit posher than Everton. Maybe we could manage some horses or something like that for the wise men. Anyway, my family run a zoo, long story, and they said, what about having a real camel?
Did they have a camel to give you?
Yeah, they did. So I then came back to Crosby and said, what about running a nativity play on the beach in the middle of winter, in the dark, and I've got access to a real camel? So there's a little pause. People said, great idea. I've now discovered that actually they were probably just being really polite and they didn't want to say no or discourage me. They didn't really believe it. But anyway, I took it at face value, and so within a week we had a technical team who reckoned they could run PA on the beach. Anyway, long story short, against all the odds and with quite a lot of negotiation on health and safety grounds and all sorts of things, we ended up performing this nativity. We had masses of media publicity because we had some good contacts with both local television main stations, news stations, and so we ended up with 5,000 people on the beach in the middle of winter.
5,000 people?
Yes, that was spread over 4 performances.
Okay.
The area was nearly gridlocked with traffic and people just pouring down to see this production. So that was our beginning. We performers were quite warm. The audience were frozen. We'd learned to wear lots of layers by then. So we then did several other performances on the beach. Both a warm one in the summer, that was nice, and another cold one in the winter. Eventually we moved away from the beach, and by this time we had amassed some people who liked to sing, and we started a gospel choir. We had amassed people who wanted to do some work in schools, so we started assembly teams. And thankfully, the good Lord seemed to say we could leave the beach behind, because although it is very wonderful and dramatic, it's quite challenging with not just tides to contend with, but obviously the weather, there's no electricity there, so you've got a lot of challenges to bring, so you had to have generators and all sorts. So we then ended up putting on a Narnia production, a walk-through production locally in the Crosby area, in a big church that now is for community use. And then one of the guests at that production was the manager of St George's Hall and said, would you be able to put this on in St George's Hall? And we said, hadn't really thought that we'd put it on again, but I suppose we could consider it, yeah. So we went down to St George's Hall, and again, after lots of negotiation, we decided that we could go ahead. So that was in 2011. That ended up, we knew we had to be a much bigger team by that stage, so we moved out of the Crosby area and spread out right across the city and across the region, went to lots of different churches and said, we can only put this on if we've got masses of people to help, because we're going to put it on all day, every day for 2 weeks. So we need a big cast of people because we're all volunteers, and so in order to have enough actors and enough stewards and things, we'll need lots of people on a big complicated rota. So we ended up with about 500 people involved, doing creative things, designing the set, helping build the set, acting, stewarding, all the background people. And about 17,000 people came along to...
17,000 people.
Yes, a lot of people, 34 performances a day, because we had visitors coming in every 15 minutes throughout. So it was a very complex production. It was absolutely miraculous, Keith, that it worked.
And okay, you've gone on and done other productions since then, I know that.
Yes, another Narnia 2 years later. It took 2 years to get over it, but we did it again, wonderful as well. And then some other productions that we had written ourselves, The Greatest Story Ever Told in the Cathedral, and then we did that in St George's Hall as well, and some others too.
And what's the mission? Do you have a mission statement?
Yeah, the very simple statement is we're about taking good news outside church walls. So we think lots of people don't feel that church is their thing. They just can't think that they would come along. But they still deserve to hear that Jesus has good news that we believe is relevant today as well.
And you're doing it in a relevant, creative way, obviously.
That's right. We try and use the gifts that we have, the creativity, the imagination we have, the lovely diverse team that we have, and produce something that people will want to come to. But in there's always a little bit of a Christian message to take away.
Okay, I'm going to come to Eric and Jenny now. Eric, how did you get involved? How long have you been involved?
I've been involved through the People First.
Through People First?
Yeah, and one of the member of staff knew Annie, and I've been helping Annie to do the quirkies.
The quirkies?
Yeah, and other things when she asks us.
That's great. And
so People First is a group, isn't it, for people with additional needs?
With special needs, and like myself, I've got bad eyesight as well, and difficulty.
And you've been coming along doing lots of creative things, and a bit of acting, and a bit of lifting and carrying.
You look like you could do a bit of lifting and carrying.
Yeah, basically do the choir on Mondays as well.
That's right, a new choir that started.
In Impact.
Impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And the quirkies, what are the quirkies?
We only just basically when we was in St George's, Annie asked us to get dressed up as the puppet.
That's right. So the quirkies, Eric, are paper mache life-size people, aren't they?
Yeah.
We've got a trail that is due to run all over this summer holiday period right up until the end of October, inspired by the Superland bananas in Liverpool.
Got one in here.
Because it's the 10th anniversary of the Iron Men, we thought, well, let's have a trail around Crosby to show people actually Crosby's more than just the Iron Men on the beach. We've got all sorts of lovely little businesses there as well.
Sounds great.
You've been helping make the paper mache models of them, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm going to come to Jenny now. Tell us your story.
My story? Well, I came to In Another Place because my mum did the artwork for the 2013 Narnia, and she told me she needed help to put it up. Found out after it was a bit of a plan just to get me there in the first place. I went to hold the ladder for an hour, never got to hold the ladder, and ended up spending every day in Narnia. When Narnia finished, Annie asked me if I wanted to come and do a week's worth of admin in the office. I said, okay.
Are you an admin person, or was that just a ruse to get you in there?
Admin was the only thing I thought I could do at the time. So I had no confidence at all, didn't think I could do anything artistic, didn't think I could act. Just came along thinking, I'll see what I could do. I mean, at that point, I hadn't hardly left the house for 4 years. Through mental health problems, I've got both bipolar and ADHD, so they really don't work well, like they counteract each other. So up until I came to Another Place, I hadn't stayed anywhere for more than 6 months at a time. I always found a reason to leave. Littlest problems are massive to me, and so I've never actually felt like I was belonged anywhere before. And it was, so 2.5 years ago, I came for a week, and I've never managed to leave.
And you're now working
I'm a full-time volunteer, but I just enjoy everything that we do. So.
And you kind of came back to your faith through this?
Completely came back to faith.
Yeah, how did that work?
I went to church when I was younger. When I was 14, my mum said to me, you don't have to go anymore if you don't want to. And my reaction at 14 was, bye. I've had a few big issues that have happened in my life. And I completely, at one point, like, I always believed God was there, but I didn't have any faith in him at all. And didn't think, I actually swore that I'd never step foot in a church again about 7 years ago. And that has now, like, completely changed. It was a little bit of a slow process, really. Because when I first came to Narnia, it was 3 days before I realised it was a Christian charity. If I'd have known, I wouldn't have come in the first place. But I was already, like, fell under the spell at that point. So I just, like, would leave the room when they were praying or whatever, quietly, like I didn't want to disturb anyone. And it just sort of slowly crept up on me in a way.
That's great. I'm going to have to stop you there because we're going now to our commercial break. But, you know, fascinating story. We'll pick up on some of that stuff when we come back. Great. Join us after the break. Welcome back to Faith Matters. In the studio today we have Annie, Eric and Jenny from the charity In Another Place. We were talking before about the amount of people that are involved in the whole In Another Place thing. And can anyone be involved?
Yep, we love anyone to be involved. We've had people involved who've got quite severe disabilities. One of our acting cast in the last performance was in a recumbent wheelchair on a life support machine with two helpers.
Really? Amazing.
He was limited what he could do, but he was there and he was a part of things. So we love everyone to be involved. Also, whether they have a Christian faith or they have none, that's all fine as well. We need them to know that our Christian faith is important to us and that we need to be able to put that across. So if they're actually going to belittle what we're talking about, then that's not acceptable. But it doesn't matter whether they actually believe it themselves or not. They can come and be a part of the team and do what they're comfortable with.
I want to go back to Eric now because you've got some struggles yourself, and but you've been involved. You've been made to feel welcome.
Yeah, I've like when we went to St. George's, Annie had asked me to do like, you know, like the little things. It's like I got so much eyesight problem. I'm like I can't really see. Apart from that though, I feel welcome, and even like the Christian. It's only one God and that, but like we go to mass and that, it's still based the same.
So you've got a Muslim background, and you were telling me that your Muslim name is Bilal.
Yeah.
And but you've been made to feel welcome as a Muslim.
Yeah, I've been welcomed by Jenny and people from Another Place and Annie.
That's great.
He's very strong, is Eric, so very useful. There's a lot of lifting and carrying we need to do with these productions. And even though sometimes you can hardly see where you're going, you never give up, do you?
You only live one. It's make sure it always counts to what you do.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great
you also helped
motto to live by.
With our giant puppets, didn't we? We've got some 11-foot giant puppets, which we took on a canal boat last summer, another slightly crazy idea. And Eric and the group came to help one day with them as well. And I think you ended up inside a giant puppet, didn't you?
I think it's the orange one I was in.
You're inside the orange one?
Yeah. I remember that day.
And you enjoyed that?
I enjoyed it, but the downfall, I can't really see much as well. So like, I needed help.
Someone was pointing you in the right direction. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, it's always good to be pointed in the right direction, I
Certainly
think.
is.
And we all need that, don't we? So what has been the response, Jenny, maybe you could pick up on this, the response of the public?
The public always really enjoy our productions because they are very different. With the giant puppets, they're very visual, so people come from a far distance to come and see what it's all about. With things like Narnia, people know the story of Narnia before they come, but it's all very, because it's a walk-through experience, it's very interactive, and they always go away with, well, actually, one of my friends went from The Secret of Christmas. She actually ended up coming twice. She brought her son the first time, her niece and her son the second time, And she was saying to me she'd never thought about Christmas that way before. And she's actually started to give to church since. So things like that.
That's great. And I often think about Narnia. A lot of people know the Narnia Chronicles. You know, they may have read them as a child or even as an adult. But not everybody's aware that there's a Christian content, are they?
No. I wasn't aware before I came to another place that there was a Christian element to The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I wasn't aware at all.
Interesting. And what about the church's response, Annie, you know, across the board, as it were?
Well, what's great is that whereas there are often we concentrate on the differences between us and churches, which isn't so helpful. When you're outside church and you're just holding a ladder for somebody or passing them a screwdriver or being an actor alongside them, you're not actually bothered what church they come from or whether they even go to church at all. You're just bothered that you're going to work together as a team. And so it's helped break down lots of barriers, helped us to see what we've got in common rather than what is different between us. And I think there's power in unity. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus wants us to work together and to appreciate each other that's there. And he can do great things if we can just forget about the differences and concentrate on him and what we have in common.
And I think there is much more unity than people realise, really, isn't there?
Yeah.
On the ground,
Yeah.
at grassroots level. Archbishop Justin was in the city recently, and he was talking about Liverpool as a city that does diversity well.
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's become increasingly important to us to include people from all backgrounds and all sorts of abilities. As Eric said very well, and I know others from the People First group have said, for some of them, it's the first time they've felt properly included in some mainstream activities. We work with lots of different groups of people, and it's just a joy and a pleasure. And also it earths you, because actually what's most important to Eric is that he can see the way ahead. So
Yeah.
you can't be all pretentious and posh about something. You actually just need to be a bit practical about things as well. And
Just give it a go.
that's right.
Give it a go, yeah.
Yeah. So that's really important.
And so what can faith communities, church groups learn from your story over the last few years, do you think?
Well, one of the things I hope they do is to make the most of when we do events, then to bring people along who aren't Christians. Sometimes we try and bring people to something in church that they're a bit uncomfortable with. Well, instead, what about taking people to something that's outside church and that they may be more relaxed about and comfortable with, whether it's family members or otherwise? I hope people learn to look at what talents they have and to join forces with other people. We work much better in teams on the whole than on our own. And to discover that they've probably got some talents they've never realised they had. I know Jenny has found out all sorts of things that she didn't know she was good at. Eric,
You found some new things that you learned?
There's loads I've done. I wouldn't see myself doing this or using them, like speaking on a mic or anything like that.
Or being in a studio
Yeah.
like this on television. Is it the first for you?
This is first for me. It's
Yeah,
like,
and-
apart from that though, I just basically thanks for people around me to basically to be nice.
That's great, and that's true for you, Jenny, as well.
Yeah, I've discovered loads of talents I definitely didn't think I ever had. So,
Like what? Acting talents? Or?
well, when I first started with the acting, I was in the giant puppets because no one can see you at all. And now I just literally get thrown into any role, don't I? Because I've found I'm actually quite good at acting, but it's my creative side that's come out. I've been making giant props and 8-foot flowers, and I built a 13-foot giraffe that I had to wear inside on stilts for Grace's story. I would never have believed I could do anything like that before. Basically been told my whole life that I'm not arty, and I believed them.
Yeah,
So-
don't believe them.
I think we're trying to show people, look, don't just think about what you can't do. Just have a
Don't
go.
judge a book by
And
a cover.
That's right. And we're all friends in this together. We're here to be supportive of each other. You know, if you try it and you find actually you didn't really like it or you weren't great at it, that's okay. You gave it a go. But actually you might find that you're good at surprising things, and you might find that God uses you in surprising ways. And I think the teamwork and the love that there is between us is something that's really struck people in a big way. And that's how Jesus lived his life, really. I think that's what struck people about Jesus, was that he just got on with people, and he sometimes taught them things that were really going to be helpful. Sometimes he told them stories, but a lot of the time he just hung out with people. And if people were sick or worried or nervous about things, he would offer to pray with them, and they saw things happen and they saw God at work. But lots of what drew people to Jesus, I think, was that he loved them.
And out in the world, which is what you're about.
That's right.
Now, we're coming to the end of our programme. Just tell our viewers very quickly about how people can get in touch with you.
On our website, inanotherplace.com, is the easiest place. Lots of things coming up. We're doing another big walkthrough experience back in St George's Hall next February, the Alice experience, mixture of Wonderland, Looking Glass, and with our own little message in there as well. We've got this quirky trail happening in Crosby over the summer.
It's great.
We've got a live history project as well happening in St George's Hall in September.
And
Loads
it's just
going on.
so much going on. Thank you so much for coming and joining us, all of you, today for Faith Matters. See you next time.